Hello and welcome to News Intervention. Today I have a very special guest, a senior RAW officer with me, Mr. Amar Bhushan. Mr. Bhushan retired as the Chief of India's premier technical intelligence service and he has written several books. His book Terror in Islamabad has just been released. Mr. Amar Bhushan, thank you for joining us at News Intervention. And sir, if I may begin by asking you, the book's blurb, the Terror in Islamabad's blurb says that it's a fictionalized account of true events which happened several years ago, and the story is about the resilience of an Indian intelligence officer who suffers inhuman atrocities at the hands of ISI goons. So sir, why did you choose to reveal this story at this point of time after so long, after several years?
It is indeed based on true events. It is not uncommon for agencies to send their spies who get caught while procuring documents or subverting people. They are arrested and then they are returned to their respective high commissions. But in the case of Pakistan, it is entirely different. The problem is that we do apprehend these people and return them to their country, following the norms of Vienna Convention, which requires that the host country must respect the rights of the diplomats. But Pakistan wouldn't care for that. The reason why I wrote the story as a fiction was that in this particular instance, their savagery was unspeakable. It had to be told, for the benefit of the younger generation and for the people to know, lest they forget what normally happens to the Indians who are caught there. I recall in 1955, Brigadier Abbasi had been caught in India for procuring defense documents. But what we did not mete out the same kind of treatment to him. We sent him back quietly and without letting anybody know. That is the problem.
Sir, usually most of us have weird notions about the working of an intelligence operative, and it's formed, our thought processes are formed because of the fantasy world movies like the James Bond films or Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible. So if I may ask you, since you have been at the helm of affairs at RAW, what does an intelligence operative look like, and is his or her work similar to what's shown in these fantasy world movies?
Interesting. We look like you and any other person. We are no different than employees of any other government departments. We are only doing a different job. Whatever you see in the movies is not real. It's a fantasy. The work may be slightly similar, but not the whole of it. And we are anything but what you see in the movies made by the filmmakers in India or abroad.
Sir, the protagonist in this book, your book, Terror in Islamabad, he comes across as a common man, an intelligence operative who suffers inhuman atrocities at the hands of ISI goons. I do not want to give more spoilers to the reader, but I am keen to know about the modus operandi of the ISI. What do you think about ISI as an organization, as an intelligence organization? And also, do you think it's a professional intelligence organization, or you feel it's in the epicenter of power-hungry mercenaries who branded themselves as some kind of an intelligence organization?
I don't think much of the ISI is professionalism. I know why you are asking this question to me, because you see their stamp in all the acts of violence that goes on in India the year round. In fact, the very fact that their stamps are so visible, you can find out that they are not professional organizations. But I guess they're doing it deliberately, and they want us to know probably that they're seeking a revenge for what we did to them in 1971 war, when Pakistan was broken into Bangladesh and Pakistan. If we have to do it, I can assure you that we can pay back with greater ferocity and without leaving any footprint. But there is a problem. As a civilized nation, we do not want to be labeled as a terrorist country, as a country that sponsors terrorism as its state policy. Nor do we want our neighbors to see us as a threat.
Sir, I'm also reminded about your book Zero Cost Mission, and as the name suggests, this mission was accomplished at zero cost. So the readers, our audience would be keen to know what was this story all about and what was this mission all about. Please let us know more about this story.
This was the most fascinating account or operation that took place in our organization. Here was an officer who accomplished the mission by taking money from the enemy to operate against the enemy country. This is an exception in the history of RNAW, and I'm sure it will remain so. The reason is that no officer ever plans or executes a mission unless the resources are allocated. But here was an officer who was asked to plan an operation, and then midway he was told to scrap it. Since he is one of our rarest of rare operatives, he did not turn back and used the enemy's money to accomplish his mission. I don't think any other officer of any other agency can do it or could have done it.
So you retired from the RAW several years ago, and all the books that you've written, all the stories that you've written, they are either based on true events or they are inspired by happenings or the operations that were carried several years, several decades ago. So why do you choose to write about yesteryears at this point of time?
You know, the operations are never of yesteryears. It is always constant. It keeps recurring. The only problem is that only the time changes, the character changes, and the modality changes. That's the only difference. Like, in my book, Escape to Nowhere, I have mentioned about the story of an officer who double-crossed the agency. Officers double-crossing the agencies will always be there. Similarly, inside Nepal, even today, the Nepalese democracy is facing challenges from various quarters, including the monarchy and others. Then you always have sources who will volunteer information and come to you as a walk-in, and then you have to handle them. You will also come across agents who are unscrupulous and greedy, and they not only get caught, but they also land you in trouble. Similarly, in this case, the terror in Islamabad, that Pakistan's treatment of our officers will continue to be savage and brutal, and I don't see this is going to change.
So an intelligence officer remains in the background for the most part of his career. What keeps an intelligence officer going? I mean, what's the inspiration or the drive to keep him or her going on and on?
Let me talk about the drive first. The drive of most of the officers is like any other employee of any other department. That is, to get a secured salary and work for a pension and promotion without getting indicted, without creating any controversy, and being on the wrong side of the seniors. But there are a few whose drive, apart from these things, is to enjoy the work that they're doing. Let me tell you that the scope of enjoyment in this kind of work is unbounded. And to achieve that, you have got enormous resources and enormous freedom to work, which are not available in any other department.
And sir, if I may bring the current situation into focus, I mean, how do you see, how do you look at the prevailing situation in the Kashmir Valley and the Ladakh?
Abrogation of Article 370 and 35A are the best things that could have happened to the state of J&K and its people for their security and for their economic well-being. Sadly, for 72 years, the state suffered due to nepotism, corruption, terrorism, and separatism. Now, what we have to do is to be a little patient. We have to wait and see how things will work out. The government hopefully is doing its best, and give them at least 7 years for the state to turn around and bring its sanity back.
Sir, Pakistan in the west and China in the east have ganged up together against India. So what do you think? What kind of changes, if at all, India should bring in its foreign policy to stave off these dangers and secure her borders, both at the western front and the eastern front?
Frankly speaking, our relations with Pakistan and China do not interest me, nor it excites me, because our relations with both countries have so far been boring and repetitive. There has been no change in our relationship with Pakistan since 1948, and I don't think it is going to change. So far as our relations with China is concerned, our major problems have remained the same. The border problem has not been resolved at all. The Chinese keep needling us on all our vital security interests, and it has come as the strongest defender of Pakistan in pursuing its terrorist agenda. But you can still deal with China commercially and for trade. Beyond that, I don't see much improvement in the near future. Actually, there is not going to be any change, because unless the two things happen, Pakistan army is controlled de jure and de facto by the civilian political leadership, and China becomes a democracy on our lines. Now, neither of these things are going to happen. So, the advice to the Foreign Office is to keep doing what it has been doing since ages.
Sir, coming back again to your book, Terror in Islamabad, the ending suggests that the protagonist Veer Singh goes off to another important mission. So, do you plan to write a sequel to the story given over here? And if you can share some details about your upcoming stories, upcoming books, readers would be, and the audience would be very keen to know about it.
Yes, I have a sequel in mind. In fact, I have already started writing on that. In addition to this, I have 4 operations which I think, which I want to write. And given the fact that I am not growing younger, still I will try to invest as much energy as possible in those books, because they are really very interesting and exciting for readers who have any interest in knowing about RNAW's operations.
Sir, thank you so much for talking to News Intervention, and from all of us here at the News Intervention team, we wish all success to your book, and we hope that readers do read and understand about the dangers of the espionage operations, especially when these operations are carried out in a foreign land. Thank you so much once again. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. I really enjoyed getting involved in a chit chat with you. I hope the listeners like what I have said and the readers like what I have written.